Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of Equity Through Literacy. I am Dr. Kimberly Chase, and we're here for another exciting episode. It's going to be really exciting, too. First of all, I want to make sure that I say because I think I've gotten so engrossed in just the work that this podcast has been and the research that I've been doing to put the podcast on. I'm forgetting that at the core of Equity Through Literacy is effective literacy instruction. I just want to start there, and I want to stay there, and I want to end there, and then insert all of the other things in the middle of that. And so that's where I started. I have a consulting group, Chase Literacy Group, and that's what we do is teach teachers how to improve their reading instruction. We work with principals on literacy systems, and so that's where I want to start.
Okay.
And equity through literacy. However, just being Black and having this be America and having America be what it is in terms of its structuring of race, it's not just effective reading instruction that affects our access to literacy. It is also segregation. It is also funding for, that disproportionate, so much more goes to white districts than Black districts. It is also, we saw the effects from the pandemic, just low income, access. Yes. It is also all of that. Yes. Resources. It is, parents who are working 2 and 3 jobs in overcrowded homes because we don't have that generational wealth that was given, not earned, given to white families on our backs. So that's why I told y'all this is going to be an exciting episode, because I'm already excited. So I'm here to disrupt the status quo. Like, that cannot be the norm. It's been the norm, and it cannot be the norm. And so who I have with me today is my new friend, Ashley Moore. And Ashley, I'm going to talk about how we met, and then I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Sure.
But Ashley and I actually have not physically met, but Ashley's my girl. Ashley's my tribe now. Ashley is my tribe. And so it all started with a, I don't even know if you call it a meme, a Facebook post.
Just an image.
An image that I made. I made quite a few. Black Lives Matter, protect Black women. Like, I posted those all over the place. Black children matter, Black literacy matters. And then I posted Black teachers matter, hire Black teachers. And I posted this in a Facebook group, Principals Leadership Group on Facebook, that I've been blocked from. That's the end of the story, but I'm gonna continue telling it from the beginning. And so I posted it in there, and, knowing it was going to be some pushback, because this is, it was after George Floyd. Now, we were all supposed to be like understanding that Black Lives Matter. And it was after the murder of George Floyd, and how everyone had come to this new recognition. Everybody else had come to the recognition that Black lives do matter, and they have not been mattering. And the very obvious ways that they haven't been mattering in America. And so I posted it, and expecting a little bit, and the page blew up. The page blew up. Like, I'm getting chills even remembering it, because it was a very exciting time.
It
Wasn't it? It was a very exciting time. It was a very frustrating and exciting time. And so I'm going to tell my synopsis of it, Ashley, then I'm going to give it to you. Okay. All right. So I posted it, and and the page blew up. I mean, people saying things that you just didn't think, for one, that educators would say, which I know is kind of, I don't know, that's a generalization.
Yeah.
And it's very problematic that educators would have been saying what they were saying, basically like pushing against it with some, racist rhetoric and general misbeliefs, like, I would rather hire the more qualified person than more qualified teacher than a black teacher, inherently assuming that the black teacher is not qualified.
Right.
I
mean, I don't think that's a misbelief. That's a true belief. That's the
right. I see what
you're
saying. Yeah. Yeah, they truly believe that.
They truly believe that.
Yeah. And it just blew up. And so I am, if any of you have been in this situation, I'm handling these responses, trying to, respond to this and respond. And as a black person on Facebook, first of all, you get put in Facebook jail for hardly anything. So I didn't want to, that's one thing that's in the back of my mind. I didn't say I don't want to. I'm not saying I don't want to get put in Facebook jail because it's happened, and I will, it'll happen, whatever. So that wasn't the first that wasn't the forefront of my mind. But what was in my mind is that I wanted to educate. That's always, I think, part of our struggle. Like, you want to educate, but then it's like, how far do you go? And how far can you go? And can these people even learn? So I'm handling this. And then as I'm handling these responses, trying to educate people, but also, trying to get my licks in, like, are you crazy? Like, you racist, whatever. And then here is Ashley Moore. I've never met her, but she's in there with me. Like, she is in there, like we were on I don't know, Fear The Walking Dead. Like, she would be on one side and I'd be on the other side. Like, she was handling these comments, even better than I was. Like, she was handling it. And so I was like, yeah, and really feeling encouraged, because it gets hard just in person, being a black person who is outspoken and who speaks the truth. It gets tiring being the only person doing that. So in this context, it, was equally, frustrating and tiring. You don't know how far to go. You don't, you want to give up. And here's Ashley right here with me. So I'm like, okay, all right. And Ashley wasn't the only one, but she was the most
responsive,
vocal, most responsive, most knowledgeable, like, and coming back with her own personal experiences, with the, the research, and just backing it up. So that went on for a while, not for very long, because
not for long,
because
not for long.
Admin or moderators, whatever, they shut it down. They deleted the post.
They hid the post. They hid it.
They hid it. They didn't delete it. And the reason why we know that they hid it is because, so I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm all right. Well, it's their page. Like, that's the end of that. I was not going to respond. I wasn't going to even, send them another message or anything, because they approved the message.
Can I add something though? So some of the people who were commenting were genuinely interested in finding out how to recruit and hire black teachers for their buildings. So even though there were some people who were, clearly communicating racist ideologies and so forth, there were some people who were genuinely interested in learning how to recruit black teachers for their buildings, so that is reflective of their student population.
Yes, thank you for saying that, and thank you for bringing in that other perspective, because it was other teachers who wanted to know, and there were other teachers who were saying, hey, maybe we should listen. Hey, this makes sense. Like, hey, just, this is what we should be able to talk about in this group. There were other teachers doing that. But of course, the loudest voices are the meanest voices. And they were. So the admin, they hid the post. And so I say, okay, that's the end of that. Ashley, badass Ashley, said, no, this is not the end. On her end, she reposted another message saying, what was it, like, what happened? Like, what happened to, what did it say, Ashley?
So I expressed my disappointment in the admins of the group. I pointed out that, education is rooted in racism. It's rooted in segregation. And even more so in the education system that we know, because, you know, schools for African Americans probably didn't exist until either the late 1800s or early 1900s.
Right.
For us.
And we created it. And we created
and we had to create those things for ourselves. We had to create institutions for ourselves. Right. So education is inherently racist. Inherently. So I pointed that out, and I was like, you know, and to cut off posts where people are engaging in discourse, which is how we learn. We know that from just all being teachers and educators, we learn from talking and listening and learning from other people. That's just how we learn.
Right.
And stopping people from engaging discourse, you are cowards.
Yes.
Point blank, period. And then see, this is the thing, like all the people in the group, they tout about loving Brene Brown and how she's so great. You cannot love Brene Brown and be afraid to talk about racism.
Right.
Be afraid to talk about the things that aren't that great in this country.
Right.
You know, she has a quote that says, "Leaders are not afraid to talk about hard things." Daring leaders. And that's from her Daring Leaders book. And that's something that I keep saying in the back of my mind. And also, unclear is unkind. So if I continue to let somebody say or do the wrong thing over and over and over again, I'm giving them the message that that's okay. Right. And being unclear is being unkind to that person, because I'm allowing them to fail and allowing them to look like a fool by not correcting it.
Right.
So I called them out, and I said, you know, you hiding that post. You want to make other people to feel comfortable. And I said, you know, this is like the work that we do every day is not about comfort. Being a school leader, you constantly are pushing, going against the grain, advocating for teachers and students and communities. Like, that's what we do.
Yes.
And then I also pointed out to them, I said, there were people who were actively engaged in that post who wanted to learn more. I was one of those people who was giving them strategies on how to recruit and find and locate Black teachers.
Yes.
And, you know, I said, well, what about them? I said, now they don't have access to the discussion that was going to help them, or they believe that it was helping them. So look,
and help Black children. And help Black children.
Exactly, help Black children. Period. I mean, all of us are should be under the same guise, that we're helping children. Right. But right now we're talking about the Black children, because they matter, right? So we're going back to this whole overarching thing. And this happened right after George Floyd.
Right.
And, you know, we're talking about what is best for Black children. And you have people who are just not of color. I'm just going to put it there. People who are not of color are telling us that that's incorrect, that basically Black people are not qualified, or they're not highly qualified, or not as qualified as a white teacher, that we're promoting segregation by saying that we should hire Black teachers, refuting evidence and research stating that Black teachers increase outcomes for students. Not in long term. And the more Black teachers you have, the lower lasting effects that it has on that Black student. Just having one Black teacher gives that student 13% better chance of going to college. That jumps to, I think, 32 or 23%. I can't remember.
39%.
39%. And it just from having interactions with two Black teachers, and it's not just Black children.
Right.
All children benefit from having Black.
Yes.
Not just students of color, but it's a bonus. And if we want to improve student outcomes, which is our jobs, and if I know that hiring Black teachers helps improve student outcomes, it's a no-brainer. It just doesn't, it doesn't get any better than that. If I know that this is one surefire way to improve the outcomes for my students, then this is a strategy that I'm going to use.
Right. And how many school leaders ask for, you know, the publishers and the salespeople to come to their schools and say, you know, convince me that this thing works. It does. Oh, sign me up.
Yep.
Well, here's one thing that works. And some people, thank you for bringing me back to the some people, because I was laser focused on those people. those other
Right.
people. But yes, some people wanted to know how can I do this then? Like, help me to do this. I tried to. I remember those responses. I tried to. I try, and you know, so so that was Ashley's pushback on why the post should still be there, and they posted it, and so now everybody's engaged in Ashley's new post. Like, oh my goodness, what happened? Oh, I didn't see it. What? Oh yeah, I know. I was really liking that. You know, the engagement. You know, then they unhid the other post. So now we're on two different posts. So it just made going back and forth, and it just made the first post even bigger by trying to hide it, which is what that is the absolute like crux of what racism is. We've tried to hide it and not deal with it since 1619, and it just gets bigger and affects us in the very worst ways. And that's what happened. And so now we're, handling both of these responses. But in the meantime, I'm like, let me get with this Ashley more, because this is my people over here. And so I reached out to her and made sure that we were connected on Facebook. And good thing, because we wasn't going to be able to be connected in that group anymore.
Right.
Ashley, do you want to talk about why that happened, or you want me to talk about it?
So what's interesting enough is that, when I forgot to add on that particular post, and I also said, you're probably going to kick me out like you did Joe Trust.
Oh, you sure did.
And deuces, see you later. So, and I said, I'm going to head over to another group where these conversations are more welcome.
Yes. And the name of that, what is it? Radical Principles?
Radical Principles.
Okay.
And Joe actually started that group because he was kicked out of Principles too. So for something very similar, he would, and it was so innocent on his part. He was just advertising his blog, and so many people had issues with it because the title of a blog, I believe, was something along the lines of white privilege and the fragility. So the people, it wasn't received well, and he was kicked out.
I can imagine.
And that, I think, was like a year ago that happened. And so normally in that type of group, it's not a whole bunch of fluff. It's like, oh, what are you doing for scheduling? Oh, what are you doing for your theme next year? What do you name your newsletter? So like these little things like where you can collaborate on and get good ideas and things like that. But never really any meat, like talking about the real issues in education and how we can improve things for kids. It's usually just like, the smoke and mirrors and the things that school leaders do in addition to like the real work that has to be done in school. So we were kicked out. And the crazy thing is that I had engaged in conversation for days on those two posts, literally days. And it wasn't until the following week that I realized I wasn't getting any highlights. I usually get highlights from all of those different groups on Facebook. And I realized I wasn't getting highlights. So then I went to search the group to see if it was on my list, and I didn't see it. So then I went and typed in and searching it, and it didn't pop up.
Right.
And I said, oh, we were kicked. I was kicked out. So then I contacted Kimberly, and I said, I was kicked out. Were you kicked out? And she was like, yeah, I was kicked out too. So then I told the people at Radical Principles that I was kicked out, and they were like, well, welcome to the club. That's why we're all here.
Sneakily kicked out, not even like at the moment, but later on, hey, let's get rid of it. So it resonated with the admin and or the moderators, whoever, put us out. It resonated with them long enough to say, yeah, we're not going to make a big deal out of it now, but we're just going to quietly and silently put them out. Principles Leadership Group. And you better be glad I don't know your name.
Kicked us to the curb.
Yeah, kicked us out. Okay.
And so the thing was, and what was also really confusing for me is that in terms of like, the group rules and things like that, I know I didn't break any, other than saying that this is a cowardly act by trying to make people comfortable by not having these difficult conversations. That's not okay.
Right. Yeah.
That's a good, and I mean, if calling people out on their crap is grounds for get kicked out of the group, then that's just what it's going to have to be.
Yes, and thank you for mentioning that, because all I did is post hire black teachers. That's all I did, and that's the thing that felt so unfair. Like, it felt so unfair. Like you say that Joe did what he did innocently. I did what I did innocently. You did what you did innocently. Like. That's
no, I did what I did to get a response. I definitely.
Oh, you did? Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll
get people to see it, and I didn't necessarily want the attention for myself, but I wanted attention to the issue. And how wrong it was, and for it, like Brene Brown says, unclear is unkind. So if you are going to do something wrong, like, I'm going to point it out. Like, I have to be clear about what it is that is not right. Like, that just was not okay.
Yes. And so Ashley is fearless. She is courageous. She is strong. She is an inspiration to me. Like, even in that instance, she was an inspiration to me. And just having talked to her afterwards, she's inspiring. Like, she's exactly the kind of principal that you would want to have in your school, defending the right things. Because when I asked her,
thank you. I appreciate that. I said, thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, it's true. Because when I came to you, when I asked her, why did you do that? She said, because it was the right thing to do. That's what kind of principles, that's what kind of leaders we need. That's what kind of leader, that's where I would want my child. That's where I would want, Black children, because I'm Black, so I'm talking about Black children. That's where I would want Black children to be, because how often do people stand up for the right thing for Black children, simply because it's the right thing? Not because it's politically correct, not because, it gets you recognition, but because it's the right thing. So, Ashley, I want to really put you on blast in a good way, in that respect, and let you know, I mean, and I have already, and I will continue to, that was an inspiration to me. Like, that really strengthened me and gave me, a push, like, to continue to think, like, about doing the right thing rather than the easy thing, or the rather than the easy
what's most comfortable.
Or the comfortable thing.
It's easy to just be comfortable.
Right.
And, and thank you for that. I really do appreciate that, because some of the things that we do, that hard work that, we do, and then I say in my mind, I have, like, the Power Rangers of principals. Like, I have a group of core friends that are school leaders, and we talk about this all the time. And we come from all different backgrounds and everything. And so, we are here to challenge the status quo. Like, that is what we are doing as school leaders, because we see what the problems are. We know what they are. We know how to fix them, but we have to change other people's minds to get it done.
And that's the hard
so that's what I mean when I say we. I just wanted to clarify that. So, one thing that I always say, that my mission is I do what's best for kids.
Say that louder, because I barely heard you.
I do what's best for kids. That's my personal mission.
Yes.
I do what's best for kids. Not what's best for me. What's not easiest for me, or best for me, or benefits me. And I tell my staff that you do what's best for children, not what's easiest for you, not what's best for you. I say, because if it is a difference between a child benefiting from something, then that means we as adults have to sacrifice in order to get those kids what they need. And they know that I stand by that. So anytime that I make a decision, anytime that I say do something, anytime, that is the driving force behind who I am as a leader. I just do what's best for kids. So, and if I'm not, and I also tell my staff, if you see me doing something that you don't believe is best for kids, hold me accountable.
Wow.
Because I believe accountability goes both ways. I'm not above anybody. I mean, technically I am, but you know, everybody is on the same path of education and learning together. We're on the same journey.
Right.
So I'm just really big on that. Just making sure that everybody knows and understands that when you work for me, we do what's best for kids around here. We don't do what's easy. We don't sit around at our desk. We don't collect checks. We don't do that.
Right.
Like, we're here and we work hard from the time these kids come in the buildings to the time that they leave, and we make sure that they learn.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about literacy, we can, or I can talk to you a little bit about, like, because I'm really big on literacy. Reason being, I always tell teachers that literacy for young children is a matter of life and death for our children.
Absolutely.
We know that if we don't adequately prepare children to read, to be literate, and not just read books, but also be literate mathematically,
right,
if we don't prepare them for that, then we are literally setting them up for prison,
right,
death.
Yes.
We know, and I say it as an extreme, but it's not far off. It's not far-fetched.
No, it's not. And here in Chicago this weekend, this past weekend, gosh, I can't even remember the numbers. I don't remember the numbers. The numbers were high, you know, in terms of people who were shot and then people who were killed. The numbers were high. And and I thought about it, but I've been too busy. I wanted to post this, that every single one of those where the bullets came from, I can almost assure you, was a child who was sitting in a classroom and a teacher couldn't figure out, or wouldn't figure out, didn't know how to figure out how to teach that child to read. Right. Because the not reading leads to being pushed out. Basically, you know, the child doesn't want to be there. The teachers don't want the child there. So push out, drop out of high school, get into crime and drugs, subject to the incarceration and being put in jail. What else is there to do? Like, how else is there?
Enter the juvenile system.
Right.
Not even the prison system, but the juvenile system.
Right.
We already know it's very difficult to rehabilitate from that. Like, then that becomes all you know.
Right.
So.
Right. So, so that part is without question absolutely connected. It's not, you know, you making it a bigger deal. The numbers show that they're all connected. But I want to go back to, first of all, Ash, well, no, we'll do this at the end. But what I want to go back to are those statistics, because for the people who need to be convinced that Black children benefit from having Black teachers, let's go back to that. So I did a little bit of research.
You got your stats ready?
And so actually just starting from, you know, from where we just got finished talking about, reading scores go up for children, for Black children who have had a Black teacher that year. So reading scores go up when Black children have Black teachers.
Yep.
Okay. Easy enough. When the thing that you mentioned earlier, when a Black child has one Black teacher, they are 13% more likely to go to college. Two Black teachers, 30, you did say 32, 32%.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought it was 32. I didn't want to misquote it. Yeah.
No, 32% more likely to go to college. What I was referring to is keeping Black children in school. The dropout rates of Black children who have a Black teacher is reduced significantly just by having one teacher, reduced significantly by 39%. So this child has a 39% chance of staying in school, of graduating from high school, more chance just by having one Black teacher. And then, I mean, there's really not more. Here's something I thought was really interesting, is having a Black teacher doesn't just benefit Black children. It benefits other.
It benefits all of them.
It benefits all other children too. There was a study. What was this study? I thought it was. This study finds students, and these are not old studies. These are recent, you know, across the board, like from 16 to like now. This one is from 16. Study finds students of all races prefer teachers of color. Okay. And so in this study, he found, the researcher found that white students had significantly more favorable perceptions of Latino versus white students across the board, or Latinx versus white teachers across the board, and had significantly more favorable perceptions of Black teachers versus white teachers on at least two or three of 7 categories in the survey. And it's a benefit for the teachers that you have on staff, or so that they can see a more reasonable vision of what society looks like, because something you said, Ashley, is leading to what I'm about to say right now. Something that you want your students to be able to see, because now I'm going into the reasons. So what are the possible reasons why Black children might do better with Black?
I'm sorry, you went out.
I'm sorry?
What are the possible reasons? What was your question?
Yeah. Why Black children might fare better with Black teachers. And one of the reasons is role models.
Yes.
And you talked about that in your
role models.
In your school.
Yeah, role models and
how you want your students to be able to see that Black people that they see themselves in these Black people, that they can be something more than, which is nothing wrong with that, but but we want to have options. There's nothing wrong with being a janitor, but you want a child to see that they can be more than a janitor, that they can be more than, the person who works in the cafeteria, or even as a teacher's aide. Like, Black children can have options to rise up to, to be teachers, to be administrators, to be the superintendent, but they need to see role models for that. And you mentioned that, when we talked about that before, why you made a conscious effort to bring Black teachers into your school, so that your students would be able to see themselves in these different occupations.
Absolutely. So just from personal experience, when I first I had relocated from Pennsylvania to Maryland, and one of the things that I noticed is that there weren't many African American teachers, or even just teachers of color, at the school that I initially worked at. But there were Black janitors, there were Black cafeteria people, there were Black landscapers. There were Black teachers' aides. There was like one Black secretary. And so one of the things that I did as a teacher was approach the principal about making sure, and I was the equity liaison. So it was literally my job to look at inequities and find inequities in the school and come up with solutions to address them. And one thing that I did as a teacher, mind you, brand new to that school, everything. And I said, one thing that I've noticed about the makeup of the staff here at the school is that it's not reflective of our current student population. We currently had a population, I believe it was like 75% African American, about 5% Latinx, and the rest were Caucasian students. And, I said, if you look at the support staff, and if you look at the cafeteria staff, and the custodial staff, you will see that all of them are African American. And I said, well, what message does that send the kids? If they're supposed to see themselves in us. And I don't think it sends kids a good message that the only thing that you can be is a janitor or a cafeteria person. While there's nothing wrong with that, but they should be able to see themselves in me as a teacher, or in their other teachers that are in the building. And it plays a part in so many different things. Like one, there's always this question, well, why don't Black people go into teaching? If I didn't have the people who shaped me when I was in elementary school, for me, a Black teacher saved my life. Mr. Haywood, friends with him to this day, the best fifth grade teacher ever. Okay, but and those memories are long lasting.
Yeah.
I've been out of fifth grade for God knows how long.
Yeah.
And he helped my mother, because he helped my mother make educational decisions for me when she didn't know what to do. He spent time. He was doing culturally proficient and relevant teaching when I was in school, which was like awesome. So we were learning about the real American history. He had us rapping and doing all kinds of stuff. Mr. Haywood.
Mr. Haywood, shout out Mr. Haywood.
Mr. Haywood was awesome. So, as a student, I'm like, ooh, if I become a teacher, I want to be just like Mr. Haywood when I grow up.
Right. Exactly.
It's about kids having role models. It's about kids seeing themselves.
Yes.
Literally seeing themselves as a mirror. Like, this is what I can be.
Yes.
And some people say that the salary deters kids and things like that. But if you have a passion and a drive to help kids, the money doesn't matter. It helps me, put food on the table and helps me make ends meet. But the money, that it doesn't matter.
Right.
It never mattered to me. But it's something different to have teachers that are there for you, and to know that years and years and years and years later, they're going to remember you, and they're going to remember I had a teacher who cared about me and went the extra mile. Because even as a teacher, and that's the other thing too, is that you have to think about, like, I'm going to give an example, like reporting. So, we're all mandated reporters, right? If I see me as an African American teacher, knowing a family situation, knowing that they're in a helpless situation. And if I have a child that comes to school, and this has actually happened to me, I actually had a child come to school every day. Her hair wasn't done. She had on dirty clothes, things like that. If I didn't have that insight, and if I didn't have that compassion, I may have reported her for child abuse.
Right.
Or what I can do is I can reach out to some of my friends and my mother, and I said, I have this little girl that comes to school dirty every day, and she doesn't have her hair done, but she comes to school every day, so she wants to be here.
Yeah.
And kids are teasing her and stuff like that. So what am I going to do? I asked my mother. I said, Mom, can you send me some uniform shirts? Because I'm poor, so I'm asking other people to do stuff. Mom, can you send me some clothes and stuff like that? And then I went to the hair store. I bought ballies, and I bought, hair products for her to use. So when she came to school, I did her hair in the morning. She came right to my room, got her hair done, and then did what she had to do for the rest of the day. I gave her shirts and things like that. And I helped her.
Yes.
Because what the opposite would have been is that she may have been displaced from her home and then put into a system that, while the intentions are to help kids, we know that it really doesn't. Right. So the impact of having a Black teacher who, or even just a teacher who's culturally proficient and just understands the struggle and how certain African American students come to you. They don't come to you that way because they want to be. Right. That's not their, they don't come that way because they want to be. I mean, and then they're there. Like, you want to make sure that they're there and they come back every day. Now, if I would have reported that girl, I'm pretty sure she would have got taken off the school and I would have seen her again. Right. So just being conscious of that. Right. And that process and that thought process in my mind was to help the student rather than to just report and then be like, well, I reported it, I did my due diligence, I'm done. Right. No, absolutely not. So when we talk about equity, it means doing a little more, way more, because I didn't have to do all that, but it means doing what you need to do for that particular child.
Doing more where there is less. That's what equity is. It's not doing the same, it's doing more where there is less. And here's the other part of the role model of being the Black teacher and being the role model for the child. So the child can see themselves in the Black teacher, and that Black teacher can see themselves in that Black child. Absolutely. And so that's what keeps you from automatically reporting and doing like the mandated, that whole process. Most harmful thing, right? That's what keeps you from doing that and thinking first, let me seek to understand, because this could be my daughter, this could be my sister, this could have been me, this could, I've known people, like this. So that doesn't only have to come from a Black teacher or a Black face, but it definitely needs to come from a place of care and understanding. And oftentimes that, just doesn't happen, with white teachers. White teachers need to, let me not say need to, don't start emailing me, y'all. White teachers sometimes, just America needs a Black pathology. America needs the narrative of Black pathology, because that justifies the treatment of Black people in this country. And so if you can assume a negative, reason for why this student is showing up how they are, and wash your hands of it, then, and having done your job, that's the most harmful, and not necessarily the most helpful. And what it requires sometimes is somebody who sees that child, as a whole person, as a hurting person, as a part of a family that has been affected by systemic racism.
So, and knowing that systems that are put in place for teachers to use to help students is itself.
It's part of it. It's a part
of it. And, and knowing what the system really does too.
Yes, absolutely. And that we have been complicit in it. That I will take my part. I've been complicit in it.
And I think we all have. And I think we all have.
But knowing better,
and doing better.
Yep. So role models is one reason why Black children might do better with Black teachers. And I'm going to go to something that you already alluded to, Ashley, when you talked about how that teacher took that special interest in you. It was Mrs. Hayes for me. And Mrs. Hayes is not here anymore, but I just talked about her Sunday, my 8th grade teacher. I was in Mrs. Hayes's car, like you as a child in your teacher's car, like that's like, oh, that was, that meant she signed me up for things, like, and in some ways she must have seen me, seen her, because she had a daughter like right about the same age, seen me, as somebody who could be her daughter. She took a special interest in me. And the reason for that is because of another reason, other than role models, which is expectations. Black teachers have different expectations, have higher expectations for Black children than white teachers. That's right. That's right.
Right. And also, but the expectations is really critical, because you have some, we're going to keep saying some.
Yeah.
You have some teachers who are white or not of color who coddle, pacify.
And so that coddling, where, what they really need from a teacher is to be challenged, because that teacher needs to have high expectations, needs to believe that this child can do better. So believing that this child can do better,
I'm not operating from a deficit mindset.
Exactly. I'm going to push him to the better, because I know that he can do it. So how many times would you ask, or how many ways would you ask a question of a child who doesn't know, is not going to be able to answer? How many times would you ask? Probably none. Probably none. That child, you don't even want that child to raise their hand, as opposed to a child who, he knows it. You know that he can do it. You know that he can get there. So how many ways are you going to, how many times, how many ways, how many things are you going to do to support that child until they find the answer? Those things are the difference in responses when you have high expectations for a child as opposed to low expectations. They're miles apart. And I've seen it as a school leader, sitting in classrooms, watching how a teacher, a lot of times it was Black boys, treating Black boys a certain way, discounting their answers, not calling on them, not encouraging them for even trying, as opposed to how they treat their other other students in their classrooms. Like I've seen it. And you see,
absolutely.
I think
I have told staff members, I'm like, you know what, these little Black kids, do not need you to pacify them.
Right. Right. But they have
giving into what it is that they want.
Yeah.
Stop letting. No, you need to challenge them. You need to make sure that you have high expectations for them.
Yeah.
I say because that's what society is going to do to them. And if you're not preparing them now, you are setting them up for failure.
Right. But challenging them with enough scaffolding, with enough support so that they can get from A to B, because you know our students sometimes will come to school with some challenges, you know, with challenges,
learning difficulties,
you know, maybe for things that look like learning difficulties when really they could be, you know, who knows what. So our students might come to school different.
Yep.
How are and the expectations here, and they come to school here. How are you going to bridge that gap? How are you going to bridge that? And that's where, again, I'll go back to that equity piece. Like, teachers need to know how to teach. Teachers need to know how to teach reading. Whenever anybody's talking about school improvement, whenever anybody's talking about student achievement, I don't even hear anything. I'm thinking reading. I'm thinking literacy. Like that's because literacy improves. It rises. All the boats rise when literacy improves. Math is better. Social studies is better. Science is better. Writing is better when reading improves. So just having those teachers be prepared to have those high expectations, and to be prepared with the knowledge and the strategies to scaffold students to get them to that place, so that the challenge can be a supported challenge and not just I tried and he failed.
Right, but then also to that point, there also has to be leadership who knows that, and then puts the supports in place in order for teachers to be able to do that.
Yes.
And I think that's really critical. Like, for example, when I came into my school, new principal, you know, and they tell you when you go in, don't change stuff. Forget that. I'm not going to sit here and let people keep doing the wrong thing over and over. I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, we looked at the curriculum, you know, the teachers, they were trying to make do with what was given to them. And I was like, this is not adequate. We're going to get new curriculum.
Nice.
We're going to get, you know, a balanced literacy curriculum. We're not going to do all whole language. We're going to have a balanced literacy approach. We're going to teach these kids phonics. We're going to teach them the critical thinking skills as well. Like, we're going to teach it all.
Yes.
And how we're going to do that? We're going to do that utilizing small groups. So we're going to level students. We're going to make sure that we know what their reading levels are. We're going to make sure that we know what their strengths are for reading. We're going to know where their growth areas are, and we're going to monitor data based on that. And when I tell you, just by doing, you know, those things seem very small because of the way I'm speaking about them. It's not.
No.
It's a heavy lift, but guess what? The reward was much greater. Nice. So now we have my students in kindergarten, well, pre-K to second grade. 80% of them are on or above reading level.
What?
And all it took was for a leader to see, you know, let's obviously listen to the teachers, because teachers are, you know, they'll tell you when the curriculum is not good. They'll complain, they'll tell you, you know, and listening to them, and then actually saying, okay, well, let's look for a curriculum that will work. Let's look together. So we sat through presentation after presentation of different curriculums and all of that. We all sat and we looked at it, and we also looked at not just, was it a good curriculum? Was it multicultural? Was it mirrors and windows? Could kids see themselves and see other people through that curriculum? So we looked at all of those things, because that's important. And in terms of equity and literacy, and then also changing the way that we taught literacy and teaching reading, because most of the teachers were utilizing whole group.
Okay.
Why?
Right. Why only?
I mean, yes, you do it. I said, but why are you doing whole group for an hour? They're not listening to you.
Right. Right.
They're not engaged. So let's look at how we can get, you know, more bang for our buck here. So then we started utilizing small group reading. And and then that's the thing. I had some teachers who were doing it and doing it well and were rocking it. And then I had some teachers that just had no idea. And I was like, well, we need to collaborate here.
Yeah,
I said, because what works in pre-K will certainly work for a third grader.
absolutely.
And so those are some things that we had to learn along the way. But now my my whole school building, I'm getting middle school there, but my whole school building, at least up to from pre-K to fifth grade, every teacher does small group instruction for both reading and math.
Nice. Nice.
So making sure that those structures are in place, that's on the leader,
Yeah.
because there are going to be good teachers that do that
Hmm.
because they know what to do. But if you don't know what to do, you won't know until somebody tells you. So
Right.
there has to be those leaders that say, this is what works, this is what I know what works, and this is what we need to do. And they give you a plan and the resources and the knowledge to move forward.
Right. And that's strong leadership, and that's knowledgeable leadership. Your students have to be, they're so blessed to have you, Ashley, because there's, that, and I'm not taking anything away from principals who
Yeah, they
don't.
like me until they're in trouble.
Huh? Oh, well,
No, I normally don't have too many of those problems. Not anymore because they're engaged in the learning.
right. But I'm sure you handle that well too. Um, but the principals have to know so much, have to
Mhm.
know everything. And so literacy is often not the place where principals know what to do and even what questions to ask. So the
Mhm.
fact that you were even positioned to listen to your teachers and to look and say, hey, this is not working, and to do something
Mhm.
about it, something
Mhm.
that worked, like that sets you apart, like even in Black leadership, that sets you apart. But as we wrap up,
Yeah,
Ashley, how do you get Black teachers? How do you handle that? How do you handle hiring Black teachers?
I am very non-traditional in terms of recruiting. Um, I utilize Facebook.
Disruptor,
Um, huh?
disruptor.
Yes. Do utilize Facebook a lot. I put out posts in like Black Teachers Rock Maryland, like all these different Black teacher groups. Like, hey, do you know somebody who's relocating? I need dope principal. I need a dope teacher for the school. Like, this is what I need.
Yes.
Um, I do use some hiring sites, but I'm very intentional when we're reviewing resumes and things like that, looking for HBCUs,
Mm-hmm.
looking for sororities and fraternities, and some of the things that I do when I screen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm trying to think what I also do, but one of the biggest things is social media. And when I advertise on social media, I don't just say this is what I need. I say this is who you're working for. If you want to see who you're working for, look at what I'm doing with social media, look at what the school does. Because people, they'll go from school building to school building, but they stay because of the leadership.
Right.
And
Exactly.
because poor leadership makes people leave.
Yes. It
Um,
put you out of a
and
business.
I know that firsthand. So I'm not going to do anything to get. I'm going to try to make sure I retain as many people as possible.
Right.
Um,
So
and our retention rate has been pretty high.
So I'm going to ask. I was going to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a pretty high rate of Black teachers in your school?
Mm-hmm.
What's
Yes.
the
Yes. So I believe it's 80% of my teachers are Black.
nice.
Yeah. And so and in my
And Black
in
males,
my hmm?
and Black males? You have quite a few Black males on your
Yes, and I was able to get a couple more. Praise God. So yes, I do. I have I have one, two. I have two African American males on staff, and I'm bringing on two more.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so that's really exciting because I know my boys need it. They need to see
Yeah.
that. They need to. And so some of my teachers have said next year I want to do a mentoring program just for the boys. Like we have all these things for girls. Like we have tons of mentoring programs for girls and things like that. Like we need to do something really different.
Yeah. Because representation matters.
It does. It absolutely does. It does. I mean, you'll have kids and they say things that you don't really realize how much they watch you, but they watch you. And so some kids in middle school, they'll say, oh, I want to be like Mr. So-and-so. Oh yeah, I look like Mr. So-and-so today. I look sharp and all this other stuff. So it's, you don't even like some teachers don't even realize like how much an impact they have on students or how long lasting it is, because some of those students, they just wanted to be like Mr. So-and-so. They wanted to be like him, you know, or they want to be in a club or in an extracurricular activity because Mr. So-and-so is the leader of it. You know, I had all of these Black boys in STEM because I had a Black teacher leading that club.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then it was to the point where, you know, another teacher was like, okay, well, I'll do girls who code. So then I have girls coding, and then I have, but the turnout is insane for for our STEM program and for our robotics.
I love it.
So yeah, and that's what you want. You want kids to be involved. You want them exposed to different things, and because that access and that opportunity is critical.
Yeah,
it's absolutely critical.
So obviously your strategies work to bring the Black teachers to your school and to keep them and to retain them, like your strategies are working.
Right. And we also speak from the place that they are qualified. But there are some people that I have found that were career changers too. So working in an urban environment, it doesn't necessarily attract highly qualified teachers from colleges and universities.
Right.
A lot of times you will get career changers.
Right.
So, you know, what I'm looking for in a career changer, I'm looking for, like, you know, those soft skills. So the soft skills are the skills that you really can't teach people. They're the skills that they already come to you with. You know, I feel like if you're willing to learn, I can teach you anything.
Yeah. Right.
And so I've had some people who were career changers. I had a teacher who taught elderly people how to use a computer. And so he's the computer teacher. You know, he's the technology teacher. He does STEM. He's learned all of these things. He didn't come to me with that skill set.
Okay.
So so when you talk about recruiting Black teachers, are you setting them up to be successful?
Right. Yes.
And are you only relying on them to be the disciplinarians in the building? Are you only those are the types of those are the types of things that I'm looking at. Like, you know, even if I hire a career changer, and he may not have had traditional schooling in terms of education, what supports am I putting in place? Am I giving him or her a mentor?
Right.
You know, am I encouraging them to take classes? You know, am I offering to pay for their practice exam so they can get certified? You know, so those are the things that I do as a school leader to make sure, like, if I'm going to recruit somebody and I know they didn't have traditional training, I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that they are successful.
Right. Doing the extra because extra is needed.
Yeah, the extra is needed, and that's equity.
That's equity.
That's equity. You know, that's what it takes.
For school leaders who are not able to get Black teachers, because it's not enough of us to go around. The reason why it's not is because it's only 18% of teachers of color in the whole entire United States of teaching, teaching core.
Teaching profession.
Yes, 18% teachers of color. That's not Black teachers. That's teachers of color.
Right.
So everybody else is white. Okay. So you're not going to be able to, in every single circumstance, get a Black teacher. Okay, we understand that. But what you can do as white teachers, and the white teachers that you have to make sure that you provide them with anti-bias training.
Right.
You have to make sure that you provide them with training that's going to allow them not training about how to deal with Black children, because that has been the kind of training in the past, like this anti-poverty training, like, oh, these poor children, how can we deal, like the children is the problem. No, the problem has been your perception, your response to Blackness. That has been the problem. That's been white America's problem. And so that's what kind of training school leaders need to focus on is how can I help my white teachers to see these Black children as whole people, not just as stereotypes, but as whole people. And so that requires some introspection, and that requires anti-bias, anti-racist training. And so as a school leader, the ones that are listening out there, all of y'all can't have a Black teacher for Black children, but you can all get you some anti-bias, anti-racist training. All of you do that because everybody got Title II funds or Title I funds or wherever that money is.
Yep.
So
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and it has to be done. It's necessary.
Right. And so, and the other thing is that also like in the anti-bias and anti-bias training and anti-racist training and things like that is that I think sometimes from the outside looking in, like if I'm white, I'm like, okay, well this training is only for me. No.
Right.
I mean, and this is a whole other topic for another day.
Right.
But it's also for Black people and people of color to unlearn some of the biases that they that have been ingrained and that we have learned and how we see people.
How we see
because we all have them. It's human nature. We all have them, but we have to know how to recognize that we have them. And then once again, knowing that we have them, and then how do we change our behavior because
right? Because
we've become more cognizant of it.
We've grown up in the same white supremacist society that you all have.
Correct.
Black people. So we have some of those same biases against ourselves and people who look like us that you do. So you're absolutely right. All of it is self-reflection. All of it is deprogramming.
And everybody can learn, and I think that's where we need to make sure we drive that home, is that everybody can learn something here. School leaders, Black people, white people, everybody can learn and benefit from this. Like everybody wins.
Yes.
And if you're willing to, and I think that's what is just a long road to go on.
Yeah, but it's the road that we all chose. We knew what this was when we got into it. You know what I mean? Like we knew this was a lifelong. I hope we knew it. If you don't, retire. Let's. If you don't know that, sign your papers right now. It's a good year for it anyway. I'm trying to find the name of that researcher. She's so popular. I don't know why I can't remember her name. Anyway,
I'll probably know who you're talking about.
You know,
when you say it.
everybody knows, but except for me right now. But I'm not going to worry about it. But what I am going to do is wrap up. Ashley, where can people find you so that they can be knowledgeable and strong like you and get more tips from you? And where are you, first of all?
I am in Maryland. So I'm in Maryland. You can find me at Principal Mo, Principal_Mo. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Right now on Instagram, it's just me teaching my kids different things. Like, the learning doesn't stop when your mom's a principal. So, we're reading, we're learning about butterflies.
Oh my goodness.
We're doing those types of things. So those are the things that you're going to kind of see right now.
Which is even more reason why people should want to contact Principal Mo on Instagram and on Twitter.
Yeah, and so just to clarify, on Twitter, I'm probably I'm interacting with a lot of people on Twitter, but I do talk about sneakers a lot on Twitter. So I don't know if you guys are interested in that, but I don't always talk about educational things, but for the most part, that's my educational Instagram and Twitter that I utilize for outreach and things of that nature. So that's where you can find me. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Twitter.
Nice. Okay, so that's where Ashley Moore is. Thank you, Ashley, so much for enlightening us, for teaching us, for leading us in this podcast. I have learned so much from you. I know that our listeners will be able to say they have learned so much from you too. So thank you so much. Thank you for it. And unfortunately, we had to become acquainted in the way that we did, but I'm glad that we did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So this is the end of our podcast, and please contact Ashley if you want to know more about what she does and the solutions that she has to the issue of Black teachers teaching Black children. And then contact me, Kimberly Chase, at chaseliteracy.com or Ask Miss Chase if you want to get you some equity in your school. And have a consultant come in and work with your teachers, or to coach you as a principal leader in setting up your systems so that they are effective for literacy instruction. And with that, we'll say goodbye.
Bye. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.